welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of September 2023. Happy birthday to all of you Virgos out there. I hope you're well, and I'm using the Llewellyn Tarot for you today. So before we begin, as always, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, so you can watch for your moon and your sun and your ascendant and other things if that's relevant to you, and hang out with some really quite extraordinary people. So if you like that, it's link number 2. Now let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Virgo. Could I have 3 cards for Virgo, please? There we go. Well, we've got 2 have popped out together, actually. Getting button blindness there for a second. Make sure that I'm not stopping it. We have the Death card and we have the 6 of Cups in your recent past. Current energy, please, for Virgo. We have the Star. That's beautiful. And we have the Moon for what's coming towards you in September. So we've got the 8 of Swords at the bottom of the deck, and you know, with the greatest respect and all the love in the world, you're not a stranger to the 8 of Swords. So not really surprised to see it here for you. The 8 of Swords referring, obviously, as it does, to that kind of analysis paralysis. But I think it's really important that, you know, for the next wee while, that you just kind of allow it to be what it is, right? Obviously, Mercury is going retrograde in your sign. That started, it actually stationed direct on the 23rd. And we have 3 weeks of it being in retrograde motion, or appearing to be in retrograde motion. And then we have a 3-week kind of cool down process where the energy is waning, but it's still, you know, still kind of carrying it. So it's kind of like a 9-week transit, all told, which means that Mercury will be retrograding for almost the entirety of September. Now, that is joined by just about every other planet being in retrograde as well, although Venus will have stationed direct at that point. It will still be in the post-shadow until, I think, like the 4th of October or something like that. So 7 planets or something like that in total, all in retrograde. This isn't necessarily a time for moving forwards, and I think that the more that you can hold that mindfully, the less frustrated you will get, because the 8 of Swords, I actually feel, is like a really welcome card. Because when the 8 of Swords appears, it is not that a situation that I am in is completely intractable. It means that movement is possible. I just need to re-examine the processes that that I am utilising to come to a decision about what I can do and what I can't do. It says that there's something about the way that you are looking at the situation that is making you feel stuck rather than the situation itself. That's why I welcome it, because ultimately it heralds movement when you identify what that thing is, you know. And with all the major arcana that seems to be working on you at the moment, and we're looking at it here, I mean, 3 of the 4 cards on the table are major arcana. We've got Death, which is Scorpio, we've got Aquarius with the Star, and we've got Cancer with the Moon. It's not a month for making great leaps forwards. It is a month for identifying what is holding you back and doing something about it. Reevaluation, you know, reassessment, revaluing almost, you know, anything that you can start a word with, you can tack the prefix re onto, is absolutely the purview of the retrograde planets. So let's get some clarifiers out before I just go off on a tangent for like 20 minutes and then remember I've got cards on the table already. So tell me about Death and the 6 of Cups, please. Thank you. We have the King of Swords, more Aquarian energy. We have the Page of Pentacles in reverse. And we have the King of Cups, which I feel like came out in the reverse, and then I automatically turned it the right way up. So we'll talk about it in both positions, because it might be for some of you it's upright and some of you it's in the reverse. Tell me about the star, please. Thank you. There's 1, and we have 2. So we have the 5 of Wands, and we have the 7 of Swords. Tell me about the moon, please. We have the Empress, that's Taurus. Ooh. And we have the Page of Swords, absolutely. We've got the Lover's card at the bottom of the deck. Let's just plop that there. And this is important, I think, because the Lover's card has been coming up a lot to talk about free will. I mean, it's one of its meanings, right? So obviously it talks about free will, and it talks about conscious co-creation, and it talks about all of those delicious things like union and harmony and the things that we enjoy. But it's very specifically speaking to the nature of free will and the extent to which we exercise it. This is something actually that I was talking to Aquarius about a couple of months ago, so I think they kind of got the jump on you with this one. But it seems to be coming up for a lot of the signs. The extent to which your free will is actually exercisable when you are still subject to subconscious fears and self-limiting beliefs that you are unaware of, that are running like a script in the background. And the answer to the question of to what extent are you able to exercise your free will is not nearly as much as you think you are able to. It's very restricted, it's very confined, and it's like, well, I'm exercising my free will, but I'm doing it in a box that is this big. And is that all that I am capable of, or can I go bigger? Now, like I said, this month isn't a month for grand leaps forwards. It is a month for taking stock, assessing, reassessing, re-evaluating, going back possibly to things that you have already covered, or thought you'd already covered, because there's more to be excavated here for you. It's a month of clarification. It's a month of getting your internals straight, I think. And I mean, let's just jump into the cards rather than me spouting off here. So we've got the Death card and we've got the Six of Cups, and I think that this is really, really important, because the Death card speaks about transformation, right? We have this idea of a change of state whenever the Death card shows up, and sometimes it can be very clearly endings, right? Something's coming to an end. There's a change of state that's going on here. Sometimes it can act as a negative modifier. So, you know, not the Six of Cups. We are not in a state of Six of Cupsness. But I think that the meaning of this is a little more, in order to go forwards, you must first go backwards. And this would very much align with the idea that I have, that you have all of the tools that you need to be the best version of yourself and live the best version of your life. But we have to get it all into the right place. Eight of Swords, and currently it is not. So it could be that there has felt to some degree a new lease of life that's been available to you. That's possible. I do feel like some of you are feeling a lot more freed up and a little more confident. I can't shift Leo out of my head here when I'm talking to you. Now, obviously, Leo is 12th house stuff for you. It's stuff that's hidden. I feel like there's a hidden bravery that has come to the surface that you are now able to witness in yourself. And it feels like a complete game changer, but at the same time, we've got this idea that things that you are trying to get off the ground, Page of Pentacles here, are delayed, they're blocked, they're obstructed in some sort of way. And so we have this active energy of the King of Swords and the King of Cups working together, you know, mind and heart, to puzzle our way through what possibly are old narratives. Now, I do actually want to pull another card for the Six of Cups, because I feel like it's insufficient to say simply your past. It feels like there's a little bit more to it than that. You know how we talk, I've talked, if you watched my videos for any length of time, I've probably mentioned this to you, about how I believe that working through our shit, right, working through our shadow and all that kind of thing is the most powerful version of time travel that we can do, because when we go back and revisit situations from the past and we bring a more enlightened view to what we see there, certainly a more compassionate, more empathetic view in terms of our own position within that, we start to change the narrative. We start to understand the narrative differently. And from that point on, there's a huge wave that kind of ripples forwards into the present. You see yourself differently in light of what you see about yourself back then differently. Now, this transformation seems to be a transformation of a former narrative, and kind of like an absolute halt on movement forwards until the full extent of what this means has had an opportunity to ripple forwards to your current understanding of self. Tell me about the Six of Cups, please. Indeed. We have some butterfly imagery, which, as we know, is transformational. We also have the Chariot. Now, the Chariot is the card of Cancer, just as the Moon for me is a card of Cancer. But it is specifically concerned with the self. Knowledge of self, a personal equilibrium that is achieved. It is my card of shadow work, actually. And I'm not suggesting that you all need to throw yourself balls deep into, day 4067 of shadow work. I remember putting a meme up on my Instagram about that, for it do be like that sometimes. It really does feel like what's being set up here is a way of accessing yourself via a past version of you that helps you understand who you are in the present to a far, far deeper degree than you would have been able to otherwise. The King of Swords and King of Cups as supporting characters here in this, supporting energies in this, speak to absolute clarity and mental dexterity in considering the intellectual position of the issues that you have faced and how that has led to a certain number of issues in your present, maybe a certain level of restrictive thinking in your present. But the energy of the King of Cups is approaching that with such a soft hand. The negative aspects of what you might find back there are less terrifying than they might have been at any other point, because you are now dealing with your own emotions in a much more gentle way. The Virgoan inner critic is savage. It's utterly brutal. And it's also completely useless in this situation. The King of Swords talks about objectivity. He is casting an objective eye over what has been before to deepen his understanding of self in the now. The King of Cups is allowing you to be, or has allowed you to be, much more compassionate and gentle with what you're finding there. For some of you, there could have been some minor frustrations, but I really do feel like it's just been niggles up until this point. And I think some of you are aware, probably most of you at this point are aware, that although you might not know quite what the root of something is in your present, that awareness that something needs to be sorted out is kind of niggling away. And there's a knowledge that it's about going backwards. We go backwards to go forwards. And so when we come to your current energy, which is that of the star, what we do have is not a resurgence of hope per se, but an energy of a willingness to clean and to purify one's energy. We've got a sense of connection, I think, that is to a past version of you. But I do feel for some of you there's almost like a bafflement that you should have, looking back at particular circumstances from your past, that you might have reacted in the way that you did, or you might have felt insecure or not good enough, or any of the other things that we feel in a past situation, because you're looking back at it now, King of Swords and King of Cups energy, going, that doesn't even make any sense. And the Five of Wands and this Seven of Swords here, difficult cards in their own ways, speak to a feeling of conflict, perhaps active conflict with other people, but quite likely, as likely, internal conflict of self. And maybe, if we're honest with ourselves, a certain amount of self-deceit. And when I say it like that, Virgo, it actually sounds really, really judgmental and whatnot. Like, oh, you're just fucking lying to yourself, you terrible person. It's really not what I mean here. I'm talking about the self-deceit that we employ, where we think it's completely legitimate to talk to ourselves as if we're worse than shit. It's like we wouldn't dream of treating other people like that, but when it comes to ourselves, all the rules, they get swiped off the table. And we can sometimes look at other people and go, "What? Like, why? How is it that they don't have that voice inside of them that is constantly, relentlessly negative in the background? That doesn't let you enjoy anything that you achieve because it says, well, you set the bar too low. Or if you don't achieve a thing, well, what the fuck did you expect? Of course you weren't going to achieve it, because this is way above anything that you could be able to manage. It's these perfectionist issues, That's a deceit. Truly, it's a deceit. And you seem to be coming from a different place now. I listened to a really interesting interview, and I can't for the life of me remember who was conducting the interview. It was quite a big podcast. I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was Joe Rogan. But whoever it was interviewing some MMA fighter who I was actually not familiar with. And he was talking about how he struggled with so much rage for the longest time, from being as young as he could remember. And in 4 months, he went from having an uncontrollable temper, putting holes in walls, ripping doors off hinges, that kind of thing, at any slight thing that went wrong. Like, it just found it really, really difficult to emotionally regulate, to, in 4 months, being zen as fuck. And the one thing that he did, the only thing that he did, was what the doctors, psychologists had advised for him to do. And that was simply, whenever he did something that made him rage at himself, right, where that negative self-talk, that inner critic, rises up, takes you by the throat and goes, "You are fucking dreadful." In that moment, he had to stop. He had to get his phone out, and he had to pretend that it was a friend of his that had just made whatever mistake he had made. And what he had to do was, into the dictaphone in his mobile phone, say what he would say to his best friend who had just made that mistake. And then he had to send it to his therapist. And he did this for 4 months. And in 4 months, what he recognized about himself was that he absolutely fucking hated himself. Now, I don't think that that's true for all of you Virgos, but it's interesting the extent to which most people hate themselves considerably more than they think they do. But what he was doing in that moment was taking himself off the boil and showing himself every single time that there was a different way of dealing with this situation. That when you approach something from a place of love, the response that comes out is very, very different. Now, I hope, Virgos, that you're not all into punching holes in walls and ripping doors off hinges and all that sort of thing. But it may be manifesting in different ways for you. It may be manifesting in a sense of powerlessness. It may be manifesting in a fear of putting yourself out there just in case you fail. Perfectionist issues, possibly. Lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem. There are any one of a number of ways in which this could be surfacing for you. And whilst I think that these are old issues that are raising their head, I think that there is a part of you that is more objective and, certainly more emotionally mature, that is now able to look at this situation and go, right, that's where I tweak this. This is where I do it a little bit better. We're not looking for... I have to explain this reference. So, when I was in my teens, fucking centuries ago now, my friends and I, and my partner's friend and our friendship group, we were completely obsessed with game GoldenEye on the N64, and we would watch the film periodically as well. Oh, it wasn't GoldenEye though; it was the one after. Anyway. Is it the one after? I can't remember. It's the one that had Elliot Carver in as the media mogul who was, creating world events so that he could report on them. And he had this sneaky submarine that was going around and committing atrocities. And then, his team would be there to scoop the news. There was one thing, and it was really, really funny to all of us for no reason that we could ascertain whatsoever, which is that they had a switch that went from peace to war on the submarine. Now, I have absolutely no idea whether such switches exist, but it was so comedic. It was quite cartoony, actually. Just like flick the button from peace to war, do the thing. I don't think that you're able to flick the button from war to peace. And I just want to point out that we've got the Knight of Cups in the reverse at the bottom of the deck. But it is possible for you to see where you have been at war with yourself. In the context of open, compassionate, detached investigation and willingness to heal, it seems to me that all sorts of things are revealing themselves to you. And a huge part of that is the lack of love that one feels for oneself. Now, obviously, what you want to do is flip that card the right way around. It's Piscean energy. And I do wonder if there's kind of bits of you that are internally compartmentalized. I'm largely happy, but we don't go anywhere near that bit because that's uncomfortable. I don't like that, right? Everybody's got big areas of their lives that are a little bit more difficult for them to go in than others. But I think that this is about the small stuff. This is about the nuanced stuff. This is about the stuff that you don't realize is affecting you in the now quite as much as it is. And without the ability to kind of Pisces your way around your internal space, likely you are missing this, right? So just over the course of September, what we're doing is being curious about our insights. And whatever we find, we are not judging it. We're certainly not trying to shove our way forwards into anything new, because I think that would lead to extraordinary disappointment for you. I think that you're just going to come up against brick walls no matter what happens in that regard, Virgo, which is why I said right at the beginning, if you can put the need to do anything concrete down, or the need to do anything fast down, and go, this is a month for me to breathe through and allow myself to be curious about myself, allow myself to investigate and see what comes up. I think there are a whole heap of things that are acting as restrictions in the here and now, particularly about the way that your mind works, that you will be able to sort of gently investigate and then allow to go. Because what's coming towards you in September is the Moon card. It's the card of deep psychology. It's the card of intuition. It's the card of the bits of you that you don't ordinarily see. And for sure, we are looking to bring healing to those things. But it's almost like, in the absence of options in the here and now, whether those options exist or not, and for all of you they do exist, it's just that you can't see them at the moment. We have to be looking internally for whatever the obstructions are, for the blockages, for the things that are sitting in the way, you know, the screens, the filters, all of the shiny yet incredibly simple and incredibly primitive methods that our brain uses to shield us from what can be glaringly fucking obvious once we see it. But it's the not seeing it that's the important thing here. The sense that you are being gifted an opportunity to gain insight about yourself that for whatever reason you couldn't access by just steaming forwards is really, really strong. We've got the Empress and the Page of Swords here, and the Empress is wonderful, abundant energy, you know, Taurus, Libra, Venusian, essentially. And if we put aside the correlations of Taurus and Libra and just focus on the Empress as an expression of Venusian energy, she's been through her retrograde, and now we're in the post-shadow period for you over the course of September. And the Empress card really is, the energy of Venus retrograde really is about checking over what it is that you value. Reassessing, realigning, reimagining, like everything, right? Going back into it and saying, are we sufficiently grateful for the things that we have? That's a big one. Because the Empress always talks to me about gratitude. You know, are we in a state of gratitude for everything? If we're not, if there are things that are acting like little festering pots of black goo that are sitting inside of our souls because we are deeply unfucking grateful for some sort of terrible experience that we've had or some sort of inconvenience that we're experiencing, you know, it's a stepping back and going, I am where I am, and I am who I am, and I'm in a position actually to be able to change those if I wish. That's pretty powerful. Do you know, I've written on my whiteboard this month. I don't do this all the time, but I do have a whiteboard in the kitchen to try and keep me straight, you know, to where I am at any given point. And sometimes I write something that I want to take in and absorb and feel. And this month I wrote, when everything changes, change everything. And on the face of it, that might sound like, well, I've got to change loads of things outside of me. It's got to be this, or it's got to be that, or it's the other. But I'm feeling that energy in the Eight of Swords. I'm feeling it very internally for you. Everything is changing. It's changing for everyone on a daily basis. And it is what you are holding on to from the past at this point, kind of hidden from you, obscured from view, that is stopping you being able to change everything, to manifest the kind of life that you want for yourself. The conscious co-creation of the Lover's card is there as an energy for you to access. It's there for you as an archetypal energy to lean into. It's almost like sitting there as a point of inspiration. You can manifest anything that you want. I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't. There are 400 problems here. This card is a card of sweating the small stuff. The Empress and the Lover's card are getting in touch with something bigger. And I love the fact that we've got the Moon and then the Empress and then the Page of Swords, because what we've got is a change in the way that you are thinking. It's a change in the deadlock here, for sure. But it's being guided by some sort of internal process. I think one of the most useful things that we can do is not assume that we have all the answers to everything, or to not assume that we have all of the answers about our internal space, more specifically, because there are always points where we can go back to ground that we have covered again and again and again and see something new. But I really do feel like that only happens when you're in this energy here. If you're revisiting the past and re-traumatizing yourself over and over again, then you are completely, absent this supportive energy of the King of Swords and the King of Cups. This curiosity that I'm feeling is with a view to healing, inside and out. It's with a view to putting yourself in a position whereby you do feel gratitude, where you do feel abundant. And it's kind of allowing your brain to catch up and go, right, well, if all of the restrictions that I have, hitherto thought were the bounds of my existence, the bounds of my reality, and I've just discovered that actually there's a little bit that exists beyond that, like I can expand into that space now. I can take up a bit of room that I didn't take up before, that I wouldn't allow myself to take up before. And that means that things change in the here and now. The Four of Cups is kind of like the absolute opposite. Yeah, the absolute opposite of that energy of abundance and gratitude that we feel with the Empress. I mean, and creativity, frankly. The creative act of making something. Well, I think this next period in front of you, certainly till the end of September, and I would think by the end of September you're really coming to the end of this process, but it's a quite a static process during September, is seeing where the Four of Cups, whether it indicate rejection, a fear of rejection, rejecting other people, or being in a state of actually fearing to reject other people because of what they might think, all of that being replaced instead by the idea of the Queen of Pentacles, which is self-care and nurturing and looking after yourself and being actually what you need at any given point Because what you don't need, just like no other person on the planet needs, is somebody who stands there and constantly undermines them, right? Follows them around and undermines them. And yet, this is what we seem to carry around with this, right? Think of who your best friend is, right? Now imagine that throughout their day, you're following them around and you are just babbling away in the background about how awful they are, what a shit job that they did, how all the stuff that comes up with the inner critic. How long do you think your friend could cope before they had an absolute breakdown? Not very long. If they managed a couple of days, that would be extraordinary. And yet we walk around with that being the constant narration in our head all of the time. And the question I would pose to you, Virgo, is what if that voice wasn't there? What if that wasn't the soundtrack to your existence? What would you do? What could you do that you wouldn't talk yourself out of? We've got this double transformational energy over here, but it's very much pointing backwards, inwards, wherever it is, like backwards in time, to shift something there, to move something here, right? The whole point of it is insight. The whole point of it is self-knowledge. By the end of September, it looks to me like you're in a position whereby you have clarified your energy. You do see where the rats have been scurrying around in the cellar, if you will, like the cellar of your mind, Virgo, And maybe you see where you've been feeding those rats and they've just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This feels... It feels very adult, actually, is what it feels, Virgo, because of this, these two energies here, and because of this curiosity and the desire to heal. So there's not a re-traumatization. There's not a almost like a kind of pinging into the cave and slamming the sealing it shut and going, well, fuck outside, it's fucking horrible, and also fuck my insides because that's fucking horrible. It's more like, what is in here? A little stick, just poking that, and a torch. I've got rats down here. Fucking hell, I didn't even realise. Well, let's clear this place out. Right? Let's put a bit of lighting up here somewhere. Let's stop feeding the rats. That's probably going to help them stop turning up, And instead, let's feed ourselves. Like, there's something actually really quite peaceful about the progression of the energy, provided that you do not allow yourself to kind of fall into this idea that you need to be doing this or you need to be doing that. I mean, the energy just simply doesn't really support that this month, Virgo. It's about getting clear on what has value to you and what in future you would like the rest of your life to be like. I mean, I feel like we talk about this a lot on this channel, but if you've been sat in that space a year ago, likely it is what you want is already shifting and changing. We've had so much planetary influence on us as souls just in 2023. And whilst our core values may not have changed, our core understanding of self is something that seems to be in a state of flux at the moment. It's not really settling down, because every time we think we understand where we are, there's just a little bit more that comes up, and we're like, holy crap, there it is again. But there's quite a restful feeling at the end of the month. By the end of the month, where everything feels just a little bit more settled than it does currently. Unless you go against the energy and you're trying to initiate, you're trying to do new things, you're trying to pull off all sorts of things outside of you, in which case I think you'll end up incredibly vexed, and you'll get to a point where you feel a little bit like your head's going to explode, and then you just stop anyway, and then everything gets a little better than it was before. Embrace the energy of being with yourself this month, and let it show you what it will. Alright, I'm going to go over to Vimeo now, or the extended, to Circle, wherever. If you would like to join me over there, you're very, very welcome to do so. The link, as I say, links, both of them, are in the description box. If that's not your bag, that's fine. The TLDR, the takeaway from this is, don't try anything new. Don't try and throw yourself into avoidant behaviors this month, because I think there's a certain lack of tolerance by the universe for that this month, right? It's about allowing these things to come in. It's about accepting whatever internal journey into the past pops up for you. And maybe this is coming via people, right? Maybe this is people that you haven't seen in quite a while who are popping up and initiating conversations with you. Remember, what appears in a retrograde doesn't tend to stay. It's about tying up loose ends. However it happens, it's absolutely not the energy of kind of driving forwards. It's like, here, a few steps backwards will save you a considerable amount of time once the retrograde energy clears. Alright, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.